violence and other kind of violence.
Get away! I could be at work, in school, in my car, and I can still get shot by the police. But I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.
What's good, YouTube? It's the Black Gen Z Mindset. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get into the video.
Cake News starts right now. And that's where we'll start. Thanks for joining us here on a late Saturday night. We're glad to have you. I'm Trent Bennett. New tonight, Wichita police say the man behind me, pictured here, Goldie Metcalf, has been arrested after a string of crimes that we told you about this morning. Metcalf is accused of stabbing one person to death and critically injuring another. This is what we know here. It happened after police say he stole a truck around 9 this morning and crashed into a church near Poplar and Orem.
Wow, so this guy ran a truck into a church and stabbed two people, killed one, an elderly woman, to death. Obviously, this brother's on demon time.
There it is, mapped out for you there on your screen. Cake's Taylor Bozer is live from that neighborhood. Taylor, what did people living there have to say?
Yeah, good evening, Trent. We spoke with many neighbors who were around earlier today when this whole incident was going down, and they say seeing all those flashing lights brought some concern to them. But when they found out what had became from this incident, that did not ease any of their worries. A quiet Saturday morning in this southeast Wichita neighborhood. That is until Wichita police say a truck crashed into this church.
Just never know what's going to happen.
Wichita Police Chief Gordon Ramsay said,
See, this witness right here, he said you just never know it's gonna I mean, at this point, these things are almost predictable. At this point, you kind of do know what's gonna happen. I mean, really, we know that criminals are emboldened through these protests, through the Black Lives Matter movement, which has, been brought to light to be a sham. Even all of the leadership is trash. Even Hawk Newsom, Patrice Cullors, all of them have been exposed. Okay, so you see this type of energy going up from our leaders, our supposed leaders, even with the Mysons and the Tamika Mallory's. But at the same time, these politicians have made it easier for criminals to get off. So you can kind of predict the results of decisions that are made by the leadership who is supposed to be representing us and the people around us.
Just never know what's going to happen.
Wichita Police Chief Gordon Ramsay says 36-year-old Gordon Metcalf stole the truck, crashed it, and went one step further by going into a home on Green Street and stabbing two people.
One is deceased and the other one is in critical condition.
Neighbors like Jaden Morse-Knipp say crime rarely happens here.
I moved here thinking that it was pretty quiet, and it has been for the most part. I think this was just somebody from just not this neighborhood pretty much.
Regardless, Knipp says he's still shaken up.
Knowing that it could have been my house that he busted into, that was definitely shocking.
And terrified that something like this could happen again.
After he wrecked and he took off, I came jogging back to my house to make sure that, nobody was coming into my place, nobody was hurting my dogs or anything like that.
Chief Ramsay says Metcalf is on parole for 6 other offenses.
There you go. There you have it. So this guy is on parole for 6 other offenses. No reason why he should be free, but they're letting people out because of the pandemic. The courts are overwhelmed. The politicians don't want to prosecute. So this is what happens.
And this continues the pattern that we see of parolees committing crime in the city. And one of the benchmarks that we need to remember is in these critical cases that we are apprehending and arresting these suspects, but yet it seems to be a never-ending source of suspects coming out of prison.
And that is by design. That's what people need to realize. This is by design. This is out of chaos comes order. This is manufactured, okay? This is manufactured, and this goes totally against the criminal justice system is racist. And look at all these dudes getting out. Look at all these dudes getting out. He was on parole for 6 other offenses. Back in the day, it was 3 strikes, you're out. So what more do these guys have to do to be locked up?
And that is a significant concern of mine.
Now, police have not revealed the name of the victims yet, and they say they're still working to figure out if the suspect knew the victims or if he had any connection to the house where this all took place. We'll bring you those details as they become available to us. Live in Southeast Wichita, Taylor Bozer, Cake News on your side.
News at 9 on KSCW.
We continue to ask questions about a weekend stabbing that killed a woman and left a man seriously hurt. Police had contact with the murder suspect who is currently on parole just hours before the random fatal stabbing. And as Caroline Elliott found, a defense attorney is raising some concerns that police ignored protocol, but police cite some inadequate staffing concerns. Caroline?
Well, Jacob, the murder suspect in this case, Goldie Metcalf, is currently on parole and made contact with officers early Saturday morning after allegedly attempting to break into a car.
So Goldie Metcalf, the guy who's terrorized this small, quiet city, Goldie Metcalf, he was arrested earlier because he was trying to break into somebody's car, which is a common crime in this day and age. And he was released.
Attorneys who are familiar with this case tells us when a parolee commits a misdemeanor, which police cited him for, the protocol is to place them in custody until officers can talk to their probation officer. But police say they don't know if that happened. And just hours later, the suspect fatally stabbed someone, and the second victim is fighting for.
So the policy is that you arrest them, and if it's a misdemeanor, you hold him until he speaks with his parole officer. Once he speaks with a parole officer, and it's up to the parole officer's discretion to let him out or not, or, keep him in jail, then that's what happens. And the police are saying they don't know if he ever spoke to the parole officer. At the end of the day, I don't blame the police, okay? I don't blame the police. It's their job to make the arrest, and whatever happens after that is up to the justice system. If there are certain rules that they have to abide by, say there is a time frame or a parameter, a time window where if the parole officer does not speak with that defendant in due time, then they have to let him go, because that is almost like a default judgment, okay? That's what's more likely to have happened. Also, a lot of these jails, small county jails, are overloaded with criminals. So if they're not going to send a dude to prison, they can't keep him in the jail because they don't have enough space, enough resources. And this contributes back to the defund the police movement. I don't know if they physically defunded the police in Wichita, Kansas, but I know that the sentiment has spread all across the country. So even if they didn't physically defund the police, some of these officials and leaders may have rocked with that sentiment and done less to assist the police in the job that they are required to do.
For their life.
I think all of us in the community would be a little concerned that if someone's on parole and they're arrested for a new crime, a misdemeanor, that they're just let back out on the street and the parole office isn't notified. I mean, I don't know what the reason for parole is other than to watch people and make sure they don't commit crimes when they've been released from custody.
Defense attorney Charlie O'Hara raising questions about parole protocol after police say a parolee fatally stabbed a woman just hours after a misdemeanor Saturday morning.
Mr. Metcalf was stopped by some people and held by gunpoint until the police got there, and then Mr. Metcalf was charged with a misdemeanor, and Mr. Metcalf was on parole. One would think that Mr. Metcalf would have been put in jail until the parole officer decided whether the parole people wanted Mr. Metcalf to go back to prison.
Police say.
And my question is, are they going to charge him with a hate crime? Because I'm sure he broke into somebody's car. The people who held him at gunpoint were white. And then he comes back out of jail and runs his vehicle into a church and kills 2 random white people. Are these dudes going to start being charged with hate crimes? Because although you can't directly say, oh, it was racially motivated, you have to kind of assume that I'm mad that the white man is arresting me. Like, this is how a lot of these dudes think. Come on. This is how a lot of these dudes think. The white man arrested me, held me at gunpoint. You can't do shit out here. Like, da-da-da-da. You know how these do. Come on. So, I don't know. I think this definitely could be filed as a hate crime, in my opinion. I mean, to go and stab 2 elderly women is crazy. And it's got to be motivated in some way. So I definitely would like to see some examples of brothers getting hit with these hate crimes, just like the Waukesha situation, where that dude had ran into the parade, the Christmas parade. But obviously, I don't think they're going to do that. But it's just something, a thought that crossed my mind.
Officers contacted Metcalf Saturday morning trying to break into a car. The car's owner held him at gunpoint, and police cited him for a misdemeanor before taking him to the hospital for treatment for an unrelated injury. After leaving the hospital, police say Metcalf stole a car, crashed it into a church, then forced his way into a home. That's where police say Metcalf stabbed the man and woman.
He was released from the hospital and then he stole the vehicle. So we didn't really have him commit a crime until he helped himself to the victim's truck that happened.
He helped himself to the victim's truck. Just the rhetoric, and the language that he's using. It's like they're trying to soften the blow of what he actually did. He helped himself to the victim's truck. I mean, that's not how it works, you know. You don't use that phrase in a situation like that. Like, I may have helped myself to another serving of dressing on Thanksgiving. You don't just go help yourself into someone's car and help yourself into someone's house and help yourself grab a knife and shove that knife into someone's body. The phraseology of these supposed leaders. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but it's just like, why are we softballing these dudes?
To be close to the hospital.
Wichita police say the parole process is part of a much larger problem. WPD says the vast majority of parolees in the state are dumped in Wichita, and police simply don't have enough resources to keep up.
I estimated that just to handle the additional pressure of non-Sedgwick County offenders, it would take me about 50 more police officers, about 6 detectives, and about 4 supervisors in addition.
But you can't do that because you have to defund the police. So you can't bring in more people because it will require more funding. And then your constituency are going to say, hey, we were protesting for defund the police and the budget increased by, I don't know, $2.5 million because you're trying to prevent crime. That's not defunding the police. So these guys' hands are tied.
You know what we have.
This is a larger problem we're going to continue looking into. Wichita police tell us data shows the city has more parolees here than Washington, D.C. and the state of Vermont. And as a
wow. And y'all know how ugly D.C. is.
result, more violent crimes will happen here.
A judge has charged a parolee with the murder of a South Wichita woman after police say he went on a crime spree Saturday morning.
Tonight we are asking whether the stabbing death could have been prevented when Wichita police encountered Goldie Metcalf just hours before the fatal crime spree. Once again, here's KAKE's Hannah Baker looking into why the Department of Corrections didn't issue an arrest warrant before the killing happened.
Are you Goldie Metcalf? Yes, sir.
Goldie Metcalf appeared before a judge by video from the Sedgwick County Jail.
You're charged in count 1, murder in the first degree.
Metcalf is charged in the stabbing death of Roseanne Wichita and an attempted murder of her husband, along with 7 other crimes. It all began Saturday morning when Grover Jackson says he called police to say Metcalf had broken into his car.
Oh, wow. So Grover Jackson, I stand corrected. It was a brother. It was a brother who held this other brother up at gunpoint. Wow. Plot twist.
I grabbed my pistol, went out to the porch outside, told her to let the dogs out. Let the dogs out, they surrounded the car and just kept the guy there until the police arrived.
When officers arrived, they say they realized Metcalf was on parole, so they sent a message to the Department of Corrections at 5:50 a.m. They cited Metcalf with a misdemeanor and let him go. That's when investigators say Metcalf went on a crime spree, stealing a truck, crashing it into a church, and then breaking into the Wichita home, stabbing the couple. When officers located Metcalf again, they again alerted KDOC. That was at 9:06 a.m. Police Chief Gordon Ramsey was at the scene.
He's on parole for 6 other offenses, and this continues the pattern that we see of parolees committing crime in the city.
It wasn't until 1:30 that afternoon when Wichita police detectives called KDOC on the phone did the department issue an arrest and detain order for Metcalf. Police say when they encounter a parolee suspected of committing a crime, they have to get an order from the Department of Corrections.
We are apprehending and arresting these suspects, but yet it seems to be a never-ending source of suspects coming out of prison.
Deputy Chief Jose Salcido says right now there are 1,189 parolees just in Sedgwick County, compared to only 91 in Kansas City, and he says that's a big problem.
Hannah Baker, Cake News on your side.
A KDOC would only confirm that Wichita police contacted the department by phone at 1:30 on Saturday, which is when it finally issued the arrest order. We are still waiting to get our other questions answered on this.
You're not going to see this story on mainstream media, and that's truly a shame because it's stories like this that should be on mainstream media because of how fucked up it is. Now, Mom, if you see this, I'm sorry. I know I don't talk like that normally. Kids, if you see this, don't use those adult words. But this is the biggest 3-hour clusterfuck I have ever heard of, and it happened right here where I live in Wichita, Kansas. This guy, his name is Goldie Metcalf. He's out on parole for battery, felon in possession of a firearm, and a couple of other things he was convicted of.
So these are the civilians who are speaking up. This is the backlash that I was talking about. Is he going to do anything about it? Probably not. Is he speaking up about it? Sure. Which is all we can pretty much do right now. But I'm telling you guys out here, brothers, especially brothers who are on demon time, a lot of these white folks are not going for it. They're getting tired of it. We see Karens acting out. Okay. And now we're going to see these white men acting out, or at least speaking on the situation and not mincing their words, not tiptoeing over the subject matter. And he doesn't really hit it directly on the head. Okay, so I'll give him that. But maybe this is the beginning of some of the backlash that we may see from this crime wave that is occurring from the black community.
His street name is Little Crook. Pretty fitting. He gets caught breaking into a car trying to steal it by the owner. The owner comes out with his pistol, holds him at gunpoint until the police show up. The police show up, take him into custody, take him to the station, cite him for a misdemeanor, then give him a courtesy ride across town and drop him off. Once the cops drop him off, he steals another truck. He takes that truck and he rams it right into a church. From there, he breaks into a home on the same block the church is on, stabs 2 elderly people that live there. One of them dies, the elderly woman. The elderly man is in serious condition. The police are called back. They take him into custody again. This time he has drugs and drug paraphernalia on him. When do you have time to go get drugs whenever you're stealing trucks and murdering people and ramming vehicles into churches?
That's what he that's what he don't understand. When these dudes are in the street, they stay high. It don't take long to make a play. That's what they call it in the streets, making a play. It doesn't take long.
Ramming vehicles into churches, all in the matter of 3 hours. Caught trying to steal a car, arrested, taken out of the PD, dropped off, steal another vehicle, murder somebody, and somewhere in there you go get drugs. This guy should have never been out. You're not going to see
Gang violence and other kind of violence.
I could be at work, at school, in my car. I can still get shot by the police. I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.